Howdy ho, friends and foes, and welcome to Dads on Life, your weekly episodic show on parenting from a male perspective. I'm your host, Jay Miles, and with me, as always, are my co-host, Keith Bogan
Operating at real speed, unlike you. Good morning.
and Dave Dusenberry.
Living in shark-infested waters.
That pop-up keeps changing. That's why I was really confused this time. It wanted me to it set up in the middle of the screen I'm like, what is this thing now? Usually just says leave or stay on the bottom of the screen. Now it's in the middle. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Did Zoom
I have no
update their
idea what
thing
he's
again?
talking about, but okay.
When you hit the record
Those
function,
days.
when you hit the record function, the pop-up changed.
Everything Microsoft changed on Friday.
Oh yeah.
It just blew up the entire world. I know because I was living it. But anyway, so
Today we're going to be talking about, I'll let Keith introduce this one.
How did I get so lucky? Okay,
I
could
guess.
Hey, sure. We have been bandying about what we're doing to provide life skills for our sons and daughters. And the idea that every now and then you want to model some behavior so that you can feel comfortable that when they're of age, they will be ready to go out and do the things on their own, if you will. I'm conservatively estimating that I have about another 30 years before I think my sons, no, never mind. My sons are getting there. I think every parent goes through that. Will they figure this out by the time they're 50 kind of thing? But hey, listen, I've got a son who lives in his own. Justin moved out. He's in an apartment. He still kind of asks me for certain things. Like, for instance, he just went away for several weeks. He's traveling for a while now. And but last thing he said to me, Dad, was, I got pulled over the other day and I have a taillight out. Could you do something about that when I'm gone? Meaning he didn't even know what to do. So I did take advantage of the opportunity to not only buy the bulb and replace it myself, which is not difficult even for me being a putz, but I also took Jeremy outside to have him watch me do it. And he went willingly. I mean, when I show Jeremy stuff, he willingly listens. I don't know if it necessarily all adds up together into paying attention, but he's listening, and I think he could do it, on his own going forward. And at some point when Justin comes back from his travels, I'll show him as well. But once in a while, I make sure, especially with Jeremy, because he's younger, that that I'm sort of showing him things that I'm doing to take care of the house. Simple stuff, if I replace bulbs around the house, if he's very closely watching how I shuttle furniture in and out of the house and why I'm doing it. I've discovered Facebook Marketplace recently and gone a little wild, so everything is changing here.
Awesome.
But by the time Justin gets back from his trip, he's gonna like, what happened to the damn house? It's gonna be really funny. But yeah, it's the front half of our conversation is what do you do to model behaviors? The back half is what are they actually absorbing? Dave, feel free to jump in and rescue me at any point here.
Yeah, no, I look, so I'm feeling that with my kids. So my three are 22, 18, and 15, right? So they're kind of at that doorway stage where, you know what, time is coming soon, or the time is here already to go out and figure things out.
So
Yeah. Yep. My daughter is out. She moved out a couple years ago, and she was an interesting case study because, again, there are certain life skills that I'm not very good at, but I try to teach them as best I can and see if the kids, get at it. Like I'm pretty handy. I'm pretty good at troubleshooting and figuring things out. Whether it's I've taken an interest in learning mechanical repair over the last few years that I didn't know prior. And I love learning new things. That's my thing, is I love trying to figure new things out as much as I can. Because everything that you learn is a skill that you can take with you and utilize later, right? You never know when you're going to need it from your bag of tricks. So I like to, my big thing that I want to get across to my kids is to appreciate learning, never to be intimidated or scared by something that you don't know what to do. Take it as a challenge, do your research, dig into it, and find an answer, and don't be afraid to try things and fail, because
Right.
Learn a lot through failure. You know, that's probably the one big, I guess, life skill or life approach that I try to get across to my kids. There are certain things I'm better at it than others. My big downfall is cooking. I freaking hate it. It sucks. I'll do it if I have to. I can follow I can follow instructions and make something somewhat palatable, but I take no joy out of it for myself. But I'll do it. And like with my kids, especially in the time after my divorce, when it was just my kids and I was like, well, got to do it. So I did it,
Right.
and I made some good stuff. The kids enjoyed what I made, and I appreciated that. You know, your responsibility as a dad is you kind of have to provide sustenance to your children. So, you know, you do what you got to do.
Mhm.
You know, it's something that I didn't like, but you know what? If you got to do it, you got to learn it. So that's what I did.
Right.
And that's the kind of spirit I try to get across to my kids. And they're all at different stages where, um, some of them are more apt to dig in on that stuff than others. Some are very hesitant and are intimidated by kind of putting themselves out there to learn something if they don't know exactly what's going on. Um,
Mhm.
One of which, my oldest, is kind of in a transition from one to the other. She was very intimidated by learning new things. She moved out a couple of years ago and has told me and shown me pictures, and shared with me via text of she's preparing a great meal in the kitchen. She's taking care of her bills. She's going and she's learning some skills at a job that she's working at to kind of learn some managerial stuff. All stuff that I would have loved to teach her, but she didn't want to hear from me. She had to learn on her own. She had to be in a position where you really don't have any choice, and you learn hard. And thankfully, she has been able to adjust on that. There are certain things that are still difficult for her that she's working through and learning, but she's in a position now where she doesn't have the safety net to rely on somebody else to take care of it for her. So she's kind of adjusting to that, which is, I think, is fantastic, right?
Mhm.
I'd rather my kids learn soft if they can, or learn easy. Sometimes they got to learn hard. I think with my older son, he's going to be that way. I think he 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 works best when you give him specific instructions on how to do things rather than give him a general thing to do and a general priority list and say make it happen. He requires more specifics. He requires a lot of explicit follow-up, which is something I don't enjoy doing because it's not real world. Sometimes you just get a list of things that you have to do. Sometimes you have to write your own list yourself and do your own follow-up. Those are things that he struggles with, and I think those are things he's going to have to learn. He's heading off to college in September. He's going to get an introduction on how to take care of some of that stuff when he heads off to Massachusetts in September. And my youngest, he is, of my three kids, and it's funny, I think he kind of takes after me. I was the youngest, you know, my brother is older. I learned a lot from what he did and how he approached things, and tried to model myself on stuff that he didn't do because they made things easier for me. I think my youngest does the same thing. He sees where my older two have struggled and has taken steps to be more proactive and learn things and do things, learn how to do things himself. I think it puts him in a better position. It's interesting to see the growth between the three. So that's why I raised the topic with you guys, you know, and I guess with our audience in general, you know, when it comes to, you know, obviously as parents, we're always looking to prepare our kids to leave the nest, right? But at what point,
Mhm.
and in what way do you start passing that stuff down? And do you really ever get to a point where I guess parents, we never get to a point where we're comfortable that our kids are prepared. But like, how does that
Yeah.
go? Yeah, I say that and I see Keith is chuckling.
Hence 2050.
Yes.
No, by the way, I know I want to hear from Jason, but I have to say something about my kids that will be near and dear to Jason's heart and our entire audience, because Jason's been very public about a certain issue he has with things that are going on in this house.
Mhm.
So I am also not much of a cook. I can cook eggs. I boil. I steam lobsters better than anybody. Um,
Yeah,
And
okay.
I can see that I can make a steak, but according to Jason, I can't.
No, you can't.
So even though my kids grew up on me making steaks and they loved them, but um, they didn't really. Neither one of them had a role model of anything real for cooking, just like you talked about, Dave. Um, so, but I will give credit. Their mother is very good at a very good cook. So they had that role model, which was fine. But they never showed any interest in it at all. Justin goes off to college and he's with roommates who seem to enjoy experimenting. In fact, he goes out and gets various tools like an air fryer and some other things that he can cook with it. So apparently
Right.
he experimented a lot while
Instapot, I'm sure.
Jeremy had a roommate, this guy Braden, great, really cool guy, a little strange, really cool guy. And all Braden does is cook all the time, like constantly cook, and he loves doing it. And Jeremy apparently was paying attention, had that role model, and learned a bunch of things. And oh, by the way, Jason, I have mentioned to Jeremy that of your objections to my cooking techniques. Now he's searing his steaks. What do you know? And by the way, yes, they are better now, but they were always really good.
No shit, Sherlock.
Okay, bite me, mother,
Family show.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Linda. Sorry, never mind. Anyway, but he's in certain areas, he's paying a lot of attention especially when it comes to cooking. So much so that I have several times recently said to him, you shouldn't have gotten a computer science degree. You should have just gone to culinary school. You seem to be so into it. And he laughs about it, but he really is. It's like all he has no interest in doing that. You can relax, but he clearly has this like mini passion for this stuff that he's gotten, and maybe he got it from me in the reverse sense, like dad sucks at this, so I have to figure out how to do it better. Who knows? I don't know. But he loves experimenting, and I think one other thing that caused him to become much more into cooking is he has an extraordinarily narrow palate. Like he only likes like 4 things on the planet, and I will cook whatever I feel like cooking and say you're going to eat this. I don't give a damn. So he has, if he wants to survive in his world, he has to be able to do it his way. I'm also out a lot. I mean, me, networking events like 3 times a week and other stuff. So he's constantly on his own to create food for himself. So
Mhm.
by not doing anything frequently, by me not doing anything, it makes him figure out how to do something. But he's wanted to do it like in much grander style than me. I'm happy with, like a couple of fried eggs or something like that. And he goes way beyond and cook. But it's either steak, or oh yeah, by the way, steak. He doesn't get into much else, although he has discovered chicken recently, and he cooks them all better than I do, which is
There's a surprise.
I'm gonna kick his ass any second. I'm gonna go right through the screen here. So, all right, Jason, you've been quiet. What have you been teaching your girls so far besides wrestling? Let's go.
We had a wedding to go to last Saturday. And the wedding was cocktail attire. I'm not going to get into the specifics of the wedding itself. Not something for air. Let's put it that way.
Fair enough.
Did you wear a tuxedo?
No.
Well, I'm disappointed.
Maybe a tuxedo t-shirt.
with a shark looking tie thing.
Class.
So I took the girls to, what's left of Brunswick Square Mall to go help me pick out a shirt. So while we were there, Delana asked me, she said, can I make a cake from scratch? And should I guess? Okay. I mean, the only thing is, it's one of the hotter days we've had the last few weeks again, and you got to put the oven on. So I really wasn't thrilled about that idea, but it was about 72 degrees in the house at that point when she put it on. which I knew it didn't matter. It was going to get up to 75 at some point anyway, even though it was night. It's just how it happens. So I come in, and I go and sit down, and she's like, you can go. So I go sit, watch TV, and maybe 20 minutes later, I start smelling the cake baking. I was like, oh, okay. I got up and walked in, and I mean, the only thing I told her to do was just clean the paddle on the hand mixer, just clean the whisks on the hand mixer, and I'll take care of the rest of it. And it took me a day or two to decide to go load the dishwasher, but she made the cake. It was pretty good, really good. One little trick she mentioned of, can I boil water? And I went, why are you putting boiling water in a cake? I don't know. I mean, it's not something that I would have thought to do, but apparently, I guess she saw something on TikTok or whatever, and it worked for the cake she was making. It was, I was like, oh, okay. Sadie has been, doing different things cutting wise. She's able to cut some vegetables herself already at 10. She actually cuts her own peppers. She takes peppers to school usually. So if they have just a regular pepper where she can't get the mini ones, she sits there and cuts her own peppers and all that stuff and gets her own lunch ready.
Okay, we're talking about a young kid eating peppers. Wow.
That's awesome.
The Miles household is very different than most places, and that's great.
She loves them.
I'm just
Delana? No.
Yep.
Delana, no. She's still. Delana went to food therapy, and she stopped doing that recently because we have a lot of shit going on. They're in camp, and it's just, late when they get out and get home. We can't get them over to the therapist, which is in Old Bridge on the other side by the high school. So, she's actually been on some trips in the last couple of days. Last 2 weeks she's been on overnight trips. Tried a couple of different things. She had a roast beef sandwich apparently a couple of weeks ago, which she said she liked. She had a steak last night at Cheesecake Factory, which I'm not going to talk about that either. I think you guys already know.
Together, but okay.
What's that? What'd you say, Keith?
I'm not sure how those two go together, but okay.
Well, Cheesecake Factory's pricing, so we're not going to get into that. But slowly little things they're picking up and doing. I've come home from doing things and looking, besides from sitting there, they're not just sitting in there. I'll come in and the bathroom door will be closed, and I think somebody's in the bathroom, and I'll hear the voices, and I'll look, I'll go in and stick my head in, and they're cleaning the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's little things here and there. There's things I wish they would be done more, but it is what it is. It's summer. They're 14 and 10. Yes, they need to start learning them, but it's not 13 and 10. They're
let's not rush things here, dude.
What's that?
They're not 14 and 10. They're 13 and 10. Let's not rush things.
So it's slow, and that's fine. It's going to be slow. I mean, they're still young, so it's not time to really get pushing too hard on things like that. But
I don't think the speed increases over time. I mean, it's if you throw too many things at anybody, they're not going to pick it up. So I don't know, Dave. From my perspective, it's whenever there's something to model, you try to model it so that they learn it. But you're not. I don't think we do it in an artificial way.
Yeah, I mean, I think we tend to teach either through passive or active example, right? So I think passive is pretty much a constant, right? You know, kids model whatever it is that they see and do in the house. And then you have those active moments where you're like, okay, we're going to work on this, you know? Um, with my kids, as I said, my older son tends to need a lot of prompts to get things done. He doesn't intuitively see things that are a problem. It could be something as simple as taking the garbage out. This actually came up a couple of weeks ago where garbage was completely full. He put something on top of it and then closed the lid. I was like, do you see where the garbage level is at? Do you see that it needs to be taken out? And that's what I focus on, is like making you be able to changing your perception. Like, this is what you need to be looking for. You know, he had the typical teenager. I have 4 or 5 half-filled cups in my room and a drink that never got finished that had dairy in it, and it was sitting there for a week. You know, stuff like that. And I'm like, you need to be able to see that needs to be thrown out, and you need to be able to do it without being prompted to do so. You know, that's the stuff that I worry about, that they're going to go here, they're going to see that something is a problem, or see that it needs to be tossed, and then actually actively make the decision to A, look at it, B, to make that decision, and then C, follow up and throw the stuff out, right? It's something as simple as that. You know, look, we've talked about issues with garbage and hoarding and all of that manner of stuff before on this show. I know I have that in my genes. I maybe I'm more sensitive to watching for signs like that because of that. I know my daughter suffers from that. And I think her moving out has made her aware that I need to be up on my stuff, because now parents aren't there to clean up after you. And now she's starting to actually see some of her own bad habits and hopefully making steps to actually address them and work on them. Right. So I think as parents, we either passively try to teach, which is, you know, acting in a way that we hope our kids emulate, or taking a more active approach and saying, you know, you're going to work on this, or I'm going to get you guys sitting down to do prep. This is how you cut things. This is how, you know, I need you to go outside and I need you to squirt some weed killer on the weeds to make sure all of that stuff goes away. Or, you know, stupid stuff like that, you know, loading the dishwasher, you know, emptying the dishwasher every day without being told to do so. Like, my big thing, and my wife will vouch for this, my kids will vouch for this, I hate prompting people to do things when I've told you to do things already. This is how it's going. These are the instructions. This is what needs to be done. I expect you to listen. I expect you to remember, and I expect you to follow through without having to be reminded constantly, because that shows me that you actually listen and that you're actually putting active effort into it instead of waiting for somebody to tell you to do things. Like, oh, that bothers the hell out of me.
Yeah, it's interesting how different ages and different kids react, of course, differently. Because some of the things you're describing, Jeremy still hasn't figured out yet, and he's 22.
Yeah.
You know, but then there are other ways. There's so many ways to teach. Some of them are extremely subtle. I'm aware, you know, when I heard you talking about your daughter and leaving things in, I think it was your daughter, I forget, you know,
my son, yeah,
eating the drinks in the room and you know, the heavy stuff. My boys grew up in a world where they would have been basically electrocuted if they put any food or drink in their bedrooms. But so they never spent time in their rooms. They would sleep in the rooms, and that was it. Then they would we have a full basement where, you know, we built it specifically for them to disappear and get away, and that's where all that kind of stuff would wind up. Ever since Jeremy's come home, more recently now, he's moved his whole computer setup to a room in the basement, and he closes the door, and he doesn't like when I go in that room. It's his private lair. But I know there's constantly empty cans of Arnold Palmer drinks and empty bags of popcorn and boxes of pizza. And so every now and then I will go in there when he's not there and I'll take it out. Not because I'm trying to do it for him, but because I know it really pisses him off when I go in there when he's not there. So it's inspiring him to take that stuff out himself.
That's passive.
It's really backwards.
Is it really though?
It's working. It's working. It's not working 100% of the time, but he's definitely gotten way better about it. Way better. So, and by the way, he's also getting better about realizing that when I go in there, I don't give a shit about stuff. So I'm not getting in, I'm not like studying stuff on his screen or anything. There's
Yeah.
nothing. He's figured that out too. So he doesn't get upset. He doesn't say anything, but he is
Yeah,
bringing
it's not
stuff
like
up much more frequently. Justin
it's
never figured that out. Justin had his private computer room, and I was like banned from going in there. He would be freaky about that. Uh,
Hmm.
Justin also, for his job, works on stuff that we would consider top secret, like government stuff, with the clients for the company. So he's like, you can't be looking at that stuff. I'm like, I'm not. I'm just trying to get the empty cans out of there. But he was really sensitive about that, and I get it. Justin's the rule follower.
Hmm.
Jeremy's the rule breaker. So
Yep.
yeah, that's how it is. So I think part of being a parent, but in this case being a dad, is figuring out the different tricks. Some people model directly with the kids sitting in front of them, and other people model when they're not around because it drives them crazy that they're doing stuff when they're not around.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways to do it as long as I think you do it over time. Um, Jeremy, God, Jason, you should be at that time. And I don't know if you are, how you do it, but when my older one turned 14, I was a little bit more sensitive about how I drove the car because I knew we were starting to approach the age where they would have to go and get their driver's permits and then start learning how to drive. So I was sitting up straighter in my seat. I was having two hands on the wheel more frequently
Interesting.
because they were watching. I knew they were watching, and Justin in particular was asking me questions around the time he turned 14. So, and I knew I wasn't going to do it perfectly all the time because once you get your license, you get bad habits. So I would frequently talk about this is how you do it, but this is what you wind up doing. This is what I want to see you doing all the time for the first like 5 years. I talk about what you need to do to develop the right habits so that you can be more relaxed behind the wheel. But it was around 14 when that happened. And it's probably different for every kid. But with Justin, it was around 14 for him, meaning that it was around 11 for Jeremy because he was listening. He was right there at the same time. So I was literally modeling for Jeremy probably 5 years before he had his permit.
Yep.
Not by choice either. I was modeling so well that it drove Jason right out of the room. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Now, yeah, and it's funny because, like, I remember that stuff. Like, I took my daughter out on drives originally when she was starting to learn and things like that. And at first, she was absolutely terrified to be behind the wheel. Like, she made a couple of like little things, and like it took her so long because she was so uncomfortable with failure. Failure bothered her so much that if she didn't have it down perfectly at first, she didn't want to try. And driving is one of those things that you don't get down right away. You
Oh,
know,
Mhm.
you have to you're bad at it. It's a physical, like there's two parts. You have to learn the physical skills of actually operating the pedals, operating the wheel, right? And the actual like motor skills to operate a car. On top of that, you have to develop your perception skills of knowing what's going on around you and allowing the motor skills to kind of take the wheel um and do that. And that's really hard at first. And she had a really big struggle with that of doing those two things at once, of having to pay attention to what was going on around her and actually operating the controls of the vehicle. She was very, very intimidated by that at first. And it took a long time for her to get to the point where she was comfortable, where, obviously now she doesn't think about it. But yeah. And I think some kids, everybody's different. I share the story with my kids all the time that with my first car, when I got my license, right? I had a 1978 Dodge Aspen four-door sedan, right? Literally nothing nothing special. The first time I got in my own car to drive it, I was at my parents' house in Bayville. I got in, turned the car on, put it in gear to back out of my house, hit the gas, discovered I was in drive instead of reverse, and hit my own house. Like, it was like 2 miles an hour, but first time I ever drove my own car, I hit my own house. Like, that's how I started my driving career. And I say that to my
Nothing
kids.
more from there.
And I say that to my kids because I want to show them that, like, listen, you can screw up. I
Yeah.
screw up. I'm not perfect. I do jackass things too. But you can screw up and you can learn from them. Obviously, the thing that I learned from that is, hey, check and make sure what gear you're in before you hit the gas pedal. But even something as simple as that, as obvious as that is, may not be intuitive for all people. You know, and I say that to the kids. I'm like, don't worry about the little things. The way you learn and the way you approach things is going to be different than the other guy. Focus on how you learn and what you do, and develop a system around that. Like, yeah, yeah, that's a
Oh my
big thing that
God.
I'm working on with my older son.
Talk
Well,
about
Dave, you can only go up from there from that.
That's
So I
that's
mean,
true.
geez.
talk about modeling. You just inspired, reminded me of a story that Justin and I frequently harken back to, which was the day he got his permit.
Mhm.
Now, we had played a little bit in parking lots before, but for the, he had never driven officially. And he gets his permit. I drive home from there. The next day, okay, it's time to do something. Let's go somewhere. And I think I even backed out of the parking space in front of the house and then positioned it so he could go forward. He gets in the driver's seat. You guys know where I live. He drives down to the end of our block onto the main side road, and he gets to this Luke Oil, which is what there's two gas stations in our neighborhood.
Yep.
Gets to the Luke Oil. I'm like, we got to get some gas first, so let's go get some gas. And as he enters the gas station and curves around the pump island, he doesn't execute the turn properly, and he hits the bollard
Mm-hmm.
right by the gas pump. He literally bends in the fender right by right on the back tire on the driver's side, because he doesn't know how to judge the distance yet.
Right.
Yep.
You can't.
Spatial
Yeah.
awareness. Yep.
And he as he's making contact, he realizes what he's doing. He stops, and just like white, he is, oh my God, what did I just do? This is the critical moment in life. I hop out of the car. He backs away from the bollard. I hop out of the car. I look at it like, I pulled the fender out a little bit. And because my car had a little nicks and dents anyway, it was a perfect car to practice on. And I got back in the car and I'm like, not a big deal. Let's go get gas. And it was that moment. If I had freaked out like a lot of other people might have, he might never have driven.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead, I'm like, shit happens. Let's go get gas. And you could see him completely relax and like, okay, I'm not going to die. And it changed his entire outlook on it. Oh, by the way, the story I repeated last night, about a month later, we went on a vacation together, just him and I. 4,700 miles of driving to go to 13 baseball stadiums in 10 days. And he drove about a third of that, including I made him a month into his driver's permit, drive in Detroit rush hour, Cleveland rush hour, and Chicago rush hour. He was the driver who did that.
Nice.
That's cool.
He is a fabulous driver now. And I know it's because I just threw him to the wolves with all the stuff.
Yeah.
He did great.
Yeah.
Gotta learn.
So, I mean, it is, the whole conversation's about modeling right behaviors and showing them the things and not being afraid to let them do that. I think the same thing happens with Jeremy is now that I see that he's interested in cooking out, he has complete carte blanche to do whatever he wants in the kitchen.
Uh-huh.
He's got one rule: don't burn the house down.
Yeah.
It was the same rule when the boys were wrestling as little boys. And I would say, you have one rule: no blood.
Keith,
He'll learn.
it's kind of hard to burn the house down with an electric oven.
Well,
I would imagine that done right, I'm sure your kids could execute that skill.
something, you have not as much faith in my kids as I do. My kids can, I'm telling you, man, because okay, Justin and I have a thing where most Sunday mornings, when he was living here, we would we would do Sunday morning breakfast. I would make the waffles. Justin would make the bacon. I screw up bacon every time, but Justin knows how to do it. So Justin would throw bacon strips on the frying pan and do it on the electric oven. I know there's a lot of different ways to do it. Go fuck yourself, Jason. This is his way, and he does fine. Great. But there tends to be a lot of smoke. So we know we have to open the sliding glass door. We have to open the windows. We have to turn on the
Uh-huh.
fan. We have to take the fire alarm down.
Yep.
This is grossing Jason out so much he had to leave again, I'll tell you. But we have set off the fire alarm so many times. And so now we just take the damn thing down before we even cook it. But it's this team. He does I do the waffles, he does the bacon. And I just let him do it. And he knows, just don't
Keith?
burn the house down.
There you go.
Get those.
Do you want to whack me with, what is that? It looked like a pan. I don't know. What is
It's a
that?
screen. It's a screen. It prevents spatter.
Oh, so you put it on top.
Yeah,
It
and
prevents
smoke.
it prevents the pattern smoke. Yeah.
But I'll give you another even better tip. Put your oven on 375, put a piece of parchment down on a baking sheet, throw your bacon on it, throw it in the oven, walk away.
For how long? Because he'd probably leave it in there for 20 minutes and burn down the house.
You keep an eye on it. That's all. When it's
Okay.
done, you know when it's done. You know what bacon looks like when it's done.
So you would put,
Easy.
and you said parchment foil.
You can do foil. I've had professionals say, yeah, that's the easiest way to do it when you're doing it in a mass, especially. When you can do a whole thing of bacon without a problem. Takes about 10 minutes. But 375, you don't need anything heavier, higher than that.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that to Justin. I mean, every now and then he comes back and we still have Sunday morning breakfast together, so that's good. I like that. I'm willing to learn. I'm not willing to listen to Jason, but I'm willing to learn. It's good.
Fuck you.
Look at that. Dave's writing it down so he can do it later.
Yeah. Well, Lord knows I need all the help I can get.
I mean, I don't know. It might be different on an electric oven, but I don't think so. I think it's the same difference. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if not, like I said, just get a splatter guard. It'll cut your smoke down, especially for you.
Well, wouldn't
And
wouldn't that trap the smoke in there then? Isn't that a bad thing?
No, it cuts it down. It absorbs it a little bit and it cuts it down. There's just like a filter in it.
Yeah.
It'll absorb it.
Okay.
And
See,
it'll keep your splatter down too. Yeah, like Dave said.
Jason's my daddy today, and he's teaching me stuff. This is good. He's modeling for me.
Now the real question is, have the girls been taught how to use that screen filter yet?
Neither one of them try to cook bacon. I cook it. Neither one of them have asked, so.
Okay.
This is good modeling. I like this. I think Justin in particular will be fascinated to try something different when it comes to bacon, because he's a freak for bacon. We just there's no leftovers with bacon, that's for sure. In fact, we could probably cook 2 pounds of bacon and still eat it all easily. There's 3 of us.
Probably.
Sounds good to me.
Well, it does not sound good to my cardiologist, but it does sound good.
It's funny because my youngest has he's been real attracted to following sort of more along the Muslim faith. And one of his big things is he's given up pork, which is, for a household that runs on pork roll as much as mine does. And the fact that I have a Puerto Rican wife, and Puerto Ricans cook pork like, I mean, you have freaking like just amazing pork stuff. He has given up pork. So that's actually a pretty big paradigm shift here in the house. One of the nice things about where I just recently moved, one of the nice things about where I live now is I am walking distance from a halal meat market, which is like a block and a half away from where I'm at. And
Nice.
One of the things my wife was talking about, because my wife loves to cook, and my son also has shown an interest in preparing meals and cooking. She wants to take him down to the halal market and said, let's look around and see what we can find. What do you like? Because obviously they're not going to do pork there. But like my wife loves lamb. She loves stuff like that. Like, let's just go find something. Maybe we'll find something that looks good. And we'll take it home. We'll prepare it together. My wife and my son, but having my wife now is a great interest, is a fantastic resource for my kids to learn how to cook. Right. So their mom is okay. She's kind of more of a classic white person cooking, you know, not a lot of flavor.
That's me.
My 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 wife,
Tell us something we don't know, Keith.
yeah. So, but my wife uh is fantastic. She can turn ingredients into food. It's amazing. I sing her praises all the time, and I love the fact that, you know, if she can pass on some of that love and desire for preparing meals that I clearly do not have to my kids and set them up better for when they're in school or when they leave the nest and when they do their thing, all the better. Yeah, man.
Jason, there is no hope for me. It's never going to change. So
You think I didn't already know that?
my only hope for me is to eventually find somebody who I can share my life with who actually knows how to cook. But I could
I was-
live on lobster and sushi for the rest of my life, so I'm in good shape.
You know you can't. Your cardiologist isn't going to have, and your other doctors aren't going to be real happy with that.
I didn't define what the length of time the rest of my life would be. I simply said the rest of my life.
We'll give it a couple
Your
days.
liver's going to be mad at you too.
Okay, so it'll be a short life.
It's not quantity, it's quality, right?
That's right. If I could eat lobster every day of my life, there's a lot of quality there. And I do, that's another thing I do model for my kids is quality of life on a regular basis. So
Yep.
it's all good.
Yeah. The light that burns twice as hot burns half as long.
Yeah, keep drinking those shitty IPAs too.
Who drinks that? I don't drink that shit.
Ugh.
I hate that stuff. Oh, gross.
Wheats and reds for me. Thank you very much.
Porters and Belgian whites for me.
I like Belgians too. Belgians are good.
But I think we've digressed in this show.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Like I said, you know, it's good that, you know, modeling for our kids, you know, is something that, you know, Keith, to your point, and I guess to my point, is something that, you know, obviously you set the foundation for it when they're young, but I don't think it ever really goes away. I learned shit from my dad even when I was in my freaking 30s before he passed away. Like, he came up when I got my one house in Yardville, and we had to redo all of the walls because the walls were just kind of like, they look like a waveform, you know? And we wanted to, they were covered in horrible wallpaper, so we wanted to strip the wallpaper and spackle, paint, make it look really nice. My dad came up 2 weeks before he passed away, actually. It was the last time we worked together. He came up, showed me how to do taping and spackling and how to get things to lay nice and flat. My dad was super handy about stuff. He was like me. He loved to learn new stuff. He was a jack of all trades, master of none, right? And he came up and showed me some great tips and tricks on how to do things, you know, like hole repair and laying all that stuff out. And you know, I'll never forget that. You know, I it's funny, I hadn't thought about that forever, but it just popped up into my head as we're talking about this now. And you know, it makes me think that, you know, with my kids, hopefully that ability to be able to kind of groom them and pass information down and make their life hopefully easier, better, or increase their skills is something that really never goes away.
I think, I mean, there's so many stories to tell. The one that's sort of bouncing in my mind is being able to mix role modeling of things with something that's fun. As Dave knows more, I think, than you might know, Dave. Of course, you both know about the car, the one that went over 500,000 miles. And I would make a thing that people would see on Facebook about every mile marker. Not literally every mile, but like every time we hit a 50,000 mile marker, I would take pictures, I'd post about it. And frequently the kids, well, almost all the time, I would make sure at least one of the kids was with me. I had for the story I'm thinking about is 350,000 miles. Justin was away at school, but I made sure that Jeremy was the one that drove the car over the mile marker. The problem with that is he was 13. So we had to go to a big abandoned parking lot, and he had to drive
Uh-huh.
like close to half a mile before he finally got the thing to hit the mile marker. But that was his first, modeling, okay, here's the gas pedal and here's how you start the
Yeah,
car.
that's
Uh,
cool.
but so I actually have video of me committing an illegal act. It's great.
Don't worry, cops are on their way.
Yes, exactly. But it was so important for them to participate in the activity, but it was also an opportunity for him to get the first taste of driving. Uh,
Mhm.
and the kids did all of the 50,000 mile markers except 500. I owned that one. I let them do every other one. 500 was mine. Um, but we were
Un,
all
un,
for that stuff too. Um, when they were dating their ladies, there was even a time when we had them with us for some of those behaviors too. So they were always big things to celebrate in the house.
Hmm.
Um,
That's cool.
so Justin now, he recently sent me a picture of his car as it cracked 120,000. It was like it wasn't one of those markers, but it was the first time he had really seen that number where we're in his own car. So he's following footsteps. I'm sure Jeremy will do the same thing when the time comes.
unfortunately, the one big school there, we were pretty much taught to drive at least partly behind the school that Don and I both went to, that my sister and I both went to. Unfortunately, they put a huge addition on the school and broke up that open blacktop that was behind the school. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to around here because they've built so damn much stuff. It's going to be a little harder to find that blacktop area around here to go do things like that. Like I said, they built a big addition. They built the gym back there for the school, an addition on it, which it was like, God damn it. When I was over there, God, it was years ago probably when Amelia and Maeve were there. I went back. I hadn't been back there in a while, and I went, oh crap. I know it was something to do with voting, and I went, oh shit, they moved the gym. Damn it,
Well,
because
for
that's
me,
where you vote
when
too.
I took Jeremy to break the law like I did, I had to go to Freehold Raceway Mall. That was the
Mhm.
closest place that had a big enough parking lot like that where we could get away with that. I probably could go to why am I having trouble with whatever the
Monmouth now.
well, yeah, it's even easier now because there's half the mall is closed. Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where you have to go for those big, wide open parking lots when you don't want them to
Right.
kill anybody. The
I
first
mean,
time, Justin,
it's going to be very difficult. It's very difficult to do it in Freehold, and it's going to be because Freehold's going to be the only Freehold and Menlo are going to be the only ones left soon.
right?
They're going to be the only
But
malls
there's
left.
always a place like that. There's always
Yeah.
something that has a monster parking lot that's half abandoned, whatever.
Hamilton. Hamilton. It was our AMC movie theater. Like it was just a
I
big open place. Yep.
still can't believe that place is gone. That was a great
I
theater.
know. I missed that theater.
Yeah,
I think I saw a movie there once.
well, I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of movies there over time. I mean,
They had
that's
they had a Dolby theater. They had the big screen theater. They that was awesome. COVID
The Watchmen.
killed it.
That was what I
Yep.
saw there. Watchmen.
Great movie.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Wow.
but
Well,
yeah.
yeah, we're off the rails. We're way off the fucking rails today.
well, there's a shock. Let me. That never happens. Come on, what are you talking about?
No, but
Actually,
for those watching and listening, chime in. Let us know. When it comes to teaching moments or funny anecdotes or things like this. Share us your experiences. Like the one thing we try to build here, I think, at Dad's on Life is a community where people can, like we share funny stories or observations or things from our time as dads. Looking at life and its passage and how it affects our kids and how we kind of grow it and how we try to have our kids grow with it. So if you got something, share it. Let us know.
I think that's a pretty good place for us to call it a day for this week. We're going to get back to this probably, I'm sure. Hopefully, when we get the other two guys back, but you've got to work on a system to
I
get
want
get
to hear
everybody
their
back
stories
involved.
for sure. And, you know, they got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially Doug. Especially Doug. Frankie, I mean, I'm sure Chad was involved with Frankie, but Frankie's gone in that now. I mean, Doug's still kind of in the middle, probably still in the process of it, like Dave. And I mean, if anybody knows Doug, you know what that guy can do with a pan. So,
By the way, we're so quick to talk about being fathers and you know, dads on life and that sort of thing. So we tell stories about our kids. Maybe when we talk about when we have the other boys here, but we'll talk more stories. I'll tell a story about the drill that I use, power drill that I use for various things around the house. That was my father's.
Mhm.
And how he used to role model for me. That power drill is literally older than me. But that
Mhm.
was one of my fondest memories, is him doing certain things around the house and then handing it to me. And I was probably like 6 or 7. And I don't have that many memories like that. My father passed when I was 18, but boy, I remember that one. So yeah, there's so many more stories to talk about.
Good stuff, man.
Mhm.
Yep.
So from all of us here at Dads on Life, take care, everybody, and of course, Keith, eat my shorts.
You go away. Oops.
What?